on points. And I talked to Willis about this stuff. And
Mine, right?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
and so it's been sent in, I will send it in. And I was going to talk to her before I left town, but I didn't get a chance. Is there anything we can do that would, we sent it in last year and was didn't. So we just, after talking to them, said we just sending it in.
Are you gonna have a scholarship? Relations,
Oh,
a community relation.
we're sending it in for a grant for Play East
Okay.
and asking for a check for Play East.
So. Did they like give you an alternate route, like, so try going onto the website and there's a thing that says.
Yes, I mean,
I'll show you.
Ohio sent it last year. If there's another one we could send in.
Yeah, it's called community relation.
I know.
Show you. So right here.
Remember that.
You want to do community,
Community giving.
yeah, because that goes through an organization.
Okay, so he may have done that.
And then do the donation request.
Okay, so
But the maximum that we've, like, the average that we've been giving is 1,000, 2,000.
that's what we're generally, well, we're getting, that range from.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, this would apply. I just gave one to a school.
Does that come out of corporate? Is that your?
Yeah, it comes out of our budget that we evaluate the need. Because we do it for all these other companies, so I don't see why we wouldn't do it for yeah.
I want to make sure.
So let's-
If he sent it, is there anything else he could send in?
Yeah.
I mean, once you send it, you push send, it's gone.
You can always attach like little things like, what it did for the community last year,
Okay,
like a
I
report
may have
or
extended,
like a recap. Kind of,
Yeah.
not too much information, but
Right.
enough, because the committee reviews this.
yeah,
For approval.
brevity.
Yeah.
But impact.
Yeah, so like, it serves,
You got it.
this
Yeah.
area and.
Yeah, we got plenty of that, so.
Yeah.
I think, I may have him send, I don't know if it'll work to send it twice, but.
You
All
can
they
send it
all they
again.
can do is say no, and
Right.
we'll try again next year.
Yeah, but I don't see why they wouldn't, because we donated quite often and I've been delivering checks left and right, so. Yeah,
That's under community,
it's under community giving.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Hyros, okay, that helps.
Just because I said no last year doesn't mean every year we review a
Sure.
different.
Yeah,
So
and that's
maybe
what,
we're already capped out of the.
and it may have been late and,
Yeah.
so and I know that, so I just want to make
So,
sure
yeah,
that
every,
we get on the list.
apply every single year,
Yeah.
so just keep that in mind.
We better get rolling, hadn't we? We do not have a quorum.
Oh, yeah, I've got to.
Oh, okay, I didn't see him. Counselor Clark, how are you doing? Ashton, good to see you. Counselor Clark, nice to see you. That's right.
Hi, nice to meet Dennis.
I will call the Wood Village City Council meeting to order. April 9th, 2024, 6 p.m. And since I've been gone, it's 2 meetings, I'll go ahead and read the land acknowledgement statement. Wood Village Land Acknowledgement Statement. The Chinookan peoples known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people on the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nachockley was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life and those people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and the fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty in 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and the assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of the many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be the guest upon these lands. Thank you. A pledge of allegiance, please. The flag is in the rear of the building. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizen comments? Greg?
There are none.
Okay,
The village.
yeah, just moving right along here. Okay, thank you. Our public safety report. How are you doing, chief?
Hey, everybody. Good, Mayor. How about yourself?
I'm just fine. Nice to see you.
Well, hello again, everyone. I'd just like to thank you all for excellent celebration over Easter. It was a great time. Great turnout too. A little bit of overview over the last month, 22 emergency calls for service came in. We had about 6 traffic accidents, 4 domestic related incidents, and 10 arrests. Most of those arrests were warrants or fugitive arrest warrants. We have 1 stolen vehicle reported over the last month, which is in comparison to the previous 31-day period at 3. So regarding the calls for service, I didn't really see too many ones that were sticking out to me that to brief you on at this point. You'll notice if you looked at the stats that we did have extra targeted patrol and traffic accidents were down in the previous 31-day period from February. And that's based on the missions we're conducting in February, the enhanced public safety missions in the city. So that's why the numbers were a little higher last month. And one thing I did want to touch on, I talked to City Manager Greg Dirks over there, and we talked about the upcoming parade for National Night Out. And unfortunately, due to some competing staffing concerns and then reduced staffing over the summer, we're not going to be able to participate in that event this year. But we talked about some other options.
Yeah, and in the staff report for the night out, that's in the consent. We've highlighted that. And then certainly when we get to that portion of the agenda, we could pull that out if we want to have a further discussion and talk about some potential future alternatives if a parade is valued by the community.
You know, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office is always a partnership with us. And just because we can't do the parade, I know you're going to be there. And we certainly recognize that the conflicts here and staffing issues that you may have at times.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
It's an honor to serve.
Yeah. I had a question, and I don't have my report in front of me, but I noticed that your self-initiated stops this last month were on the average much higher.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm always pleased to see that.
Good. Excellent.
I'm pleased to see it because to me, it means that your deputies are making the stops, and whether they're writing tickets or not, they're stopping vehicles, they're having conversations with community members, and representing law enforcement. So I always like to see those self-initiated stops. To me, it means we're community policing as well.
Absolutely.
To me, it means.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. The number was significantly higher too.
Yes.
So-
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I saw that we had 2 suicide attempts. That's
Hmm.
kind of rare in Wood Village.
Yeah, I noticed those as well, and I did look into those. What I can tell you from those is both those people they did make it to the hospital. They were contacted by us and they made it to the hospital for treatment. So,
Oh, good.
yeah.
You have a lot of different categories, and then you have one that's called all other calls types, and that's where the majority of well, except for traffic stops, you have down that there's 80, and that's kind of average. It's
Mhm.
average is 100 per, but I have like 80. Can you describe what these other calls or types are like?
Well, as you know, just because we receive a call for service, the way it's coded by our dispatcher is not necessarily exactly what's happening. They have to pick from a certain segment of call types and priorities, and they have to fit the information they receive into that to dispatch the call. So a lot of times we'll show up to an event and it'll be completely different from what it was sent out to on the CAD. I try to go through specific ones that I think would be a priority that I would be looking at as well. And like I said, I went through all the calls. I have a breakdown of all the calls that happened over the last month, and I didn't see any that were really remarkable in a sense of public safety concerns for the city. And then as far as the traffic stops are concerned, like I said, we've really been trying to do these enhanced missions where we're spending a good chunk of time just out, like the mayor talked about, just out here making traffic stops, but also engaging with community members inside the city of Wood Village. So I'm not sure if that answered your question appropriately or not.
Okay, I thought maybe they were, well, okay, I won't try to read into it.
Well, I guess, if I could maybe restate it, when it says, other, is that
Mm.
they got reclassified, or just what constitutes an other that doesn't fit that bucket? Like, is that just like a loud noise call? Is that I got a concern with a neighbor? Like, what's the characterization more or less on some of those?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I must have
And
misunderstood.
Maybe you could just look at it and let us
Sure.
know next month or something. I don't know. I was just curious. That's a lot of calls of other, that's all.
I see. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. So the other can be anything. It can be an enhanced patrol. Somebody's put themselves on a priority or on a check of like the park. And so they've attached themselves to a call of an ex patrol in the park. It could be just a citizen contact, consensual citizen contact. If it was a police related call that you would see in here that you would expect to see, such as a suspicious person or a theft, those would be coded accordingly. So another maybe a phone contact for a citizen that wants to speak to a deputy about a whatever issue. So that's what would be coded under that area.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And if you like, I can get a breakdown of this month. and
Well,
get
no,
back to you.
no,
Okay.
okay. I was just curious if it didn't fit in this very large number of
Yeah, I understand.
these other things. I was like, well, wow, what else could that be? But that's okay.
All right.
We're good.
Other questions, comments?
Just thanks for your help and
Yes.
support at
Yeah.
our egg extravaganza.
No,
Yes.
You didn't
Word
have to
on-
arrest any 2-year-olds or
Yeah.
5-year-olds. And I
No
know
big
you can't
fights or
talk
anything.
about that either. So,
Well, from what I read, and I was gone, but from what I read, that maybe arresting any parents for getting into the infants
No.
area to pick up eggs.
It was all good. So.
Interference.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your report. Yeah.
All right.
Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Let's see, the review of bills paid. Any questions on those checks? Paying, the consent agenda. I would, Greg, would like to have a further discussion on the, Easter egg hunt. So I need a motion to remove from the consent agenda the 36th annual Easter egg hunt. Can I have a motion on that?
I had one question on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Okay, I had a question on who is Harry's Key Service for $7,893.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
That's the 15th.
You wanted to.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
on that one, that's part of our site security upgrade. And at your next meeting, we'll have an executive session to go over the specifics of what we're doing at all of our utility sites. But that's part of our utility site upgrade project.
Oh, okay. All right. Just wanted to know who Harry was. That's fine.
Harry's changing out our locks.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right.
So Mayor, what do we need, what are we motioning for?
Yeah, motion to remove the Easter egg hunt from the consent agenda.
I motion to move it.
I'll second that.
First and second, we got a second on that and we will remove that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll take the Easter egg hunt off of there. And Greg, do you want to do that now or do you want to?
But let's do it after our friends from Metro give
Okay,
their presentation.
We'll do that. Good idea. Okay, well then, presentation.
But we still need a motion to approve the consent. agenda.
Yeah, motion to approve.
I thought we just did that.
You
That was to
we-
remove the.
remove the Easter egg
So
hunt from it.
now a motion to approve the consent agenda without the Easter egg hunt.
Do that one too.
I motion to approve the consent calendar.
And I'll second that.
You guys are kind of hogging the show down there, but all those in favor?
Aye.
There. Review the bills paid.
Take it we don't have anybody on Zoom on the council
Everyone's here.
where everyone's here. Okay. I
Okay, Zubon, yes,
didn't want to hog the show.
yeah. Yeah, you guys are pretty mean to people when they're on the Zoom.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Terrible.
Yeah. I hope your feelings aren't hurt.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, where everybody likes the zoo.
Good.
We just got to get them to pay for it.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna get us kicked off, if that's all right.
All right, geez,
All right.
Counselor Simpson, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, Mayor. Good to see everybody. Good evening and thank you for having us here tonight. For the record, I'm Ashton Simpson, Metro Counselor for District 1, and I'm happy to be here with you all tonight in beautiful Wood Village. Always a pleasure. I'm glad to be here this evening with representatives from the Oregon Zoo and the Zoo Foundation for a presentation on the zoo's current and future efforts and vision. The zoo is something that I'm really proud of for our region. The zoo does much more than provide world-class animal care. Our team is leading conservation efforts and raising awareness and education in our communities. The zoo and state economy with approximately 1.3 million visitors a year. And this team, I love this team, is working with the Alaka Alliance, a coalition of coastal tribes to repopulate the Oregon coast with sea otters, a key species lost to disastrous human activity. I'm proud of the zoo in setting priorities for sustainability, inclusion, and animal well-being, and grateful to have them as an economic driver for our region. I'd like to introduce the zoo's director, Heidi Runn, to share some updates, as well as our vice chair on the Oregon Zoo Foundation, Ms. Melanie Billings-Yoon.
Thank you.
Hello, we've already had a long chat, but I'll just introduce myself formally now. Yeah, my name is Melanie Billings-Yoon. I'm the vice chair of the Oregon Zoo Foundation, which is a 501c3 that supports the zoo. I'm also the head of advocacy. I am really honored both to be in this gorgeous building, but also to introduce Heidi Runn, who is our zoo director and brings a really strong background in zoology and conservation. And back in the early days, she led the first part of the campus plan and is now leading the second part of our campus plan. We're here today because we want to share with you both what's happening and what is being planned. So I'm going to turn it over to Heidi.
Great, thank you. Well, Heidi Runn, Oregon Zoo Director. I've been the director there since 2021. And prior to that, I did oversee the last decade of design and construction at the zoo. So what I want to do today is just let you know where we're at and where we're going. Wood Village, your members, your community are a big part of the Oregon Zoo. So we want to make sure you can come along with us on our journey. Thank you. So, all right, we're rolling. Just to make sure you know what we're all about is connecting our community to the wonder of wildlife. And we are a hub for science, for conservation, education, and animal well-being. And that shows up in all that we do. What you're looking at here, let's keep scrolling. How'd you do that? Oh, gotcha. Next. You want to be my slider? Yeah, that's okay. We can go to this one. That sounds great. There, we're right there. That is Dr. Carlos. He is our head veterinarian. And I think one of the really key things is that we have a new veterinary medical center about a decade ago, and it allows us to provide the most state-of-the-art animal care. It's a LEED green building, and it really makes sure we have the highest technology to take care of our animals. Why our zoo is different? We'll be 150 in about 13 years, which is crazy to think about. But it's been 150 years of community support for the Oregon Zoo. And that's what makes us unique as a zoo and really part of the fabric of our community. We are celebrating 50 years of being accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. And why that's important is because there are only 2 zoos in the country that can say that, us and the Philadelphia Zoo. 50 years ago, we both went through the first round of accreditation that basically says, are you meeting the gold standard for zoos? So we've had a real fun time and a look back experience with our staff of looking back at what was important 50 years ago and what's important now. But we have maintained accreditation for that full 50 years. We have about 1.3 million visitors coming through the zoo annually. That's a significant impact on our community, and we are a treasure and a hub for our community to be there. And that continues to really focus on youth and our community. We had, I think, 235,000 people for Zoo Lights alone. So hopefully you all made it out, or you've been there in the past few years. Thank you for scrolling down to the next slide. Yeah, you're good. Right there is perfect. So in 2008, voters across the region voted to support capital investment at the zoo, and that was focused on animal well-being, sustainability, and education. That was really transformative. And if you've seen the zoo in the last 5 years, you can see the outcome of that. It was really an overhaul of our elephant area, our polar bear habitat, our primate habitat. We added a whole new education facility to focus on conservation education. And as I mentioned, the new animal hospital. And all of those projects were completed on time and on budget. We finished that round of investment in 2021. And with that, we decreased our energy use and significantly, by 60%, decreased our water usage, which was big because we are a large water user with all of those pools. We can scroll down. So we've come a long way. This is a list of the projects that I mentioned. If you haven't been, this baby here is baby Jolene. She is our orangutan baby. She is celebrating her 2nd birthday this weekend, though. So look out for birthday celebrations for Jolene. She is a huge hit, and she is in our primate forest area. We can scroll, please. A big part of what we do is education. And I think really a key point for your community is one of our programs is called the Zoo Apprenticeship Program. It's a paid apprenticeship program for teens that are 15 to 18 with an emphasis on low income and youth of color. It provides educational programming, career development, animal care, and conservation action. And it gives kids and youth that are interested in these careers a 3-year paid growing internship at the zoo. So it's been something, we are just celebrating 25 years of having this around, which is extremely significant. We just did a study of the over 200 graduates that are across the world now, and to see kind of where they've ended up and to see the impact they're having on both their careers, their growth, but also conservation is pretty strong. We just brought in a new group. If you have people that are interested, keep an eye out for the recruitment for that, which would be in about 8 months from now, most likely. We also do a lot of outreach programs where we bring in many organizations from marginalized communities, including People of Color Outdoors, Native American Youth and Family Center, Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, and Oregon Commission for the Blind. And we provide access to the zoo. And we also partnering with OMSI to deliver camps. And we set aside about 30% of the spots for low-income students to be able to access camps at the zoo. So where are we going next? Next slide, please. We knew that the 2008 bond measure was just going to cover not quite half of the zoo upgrades that were needed. And we always knew there was a next phase. So we started in 2022 working on a planning effort to lay out what that future vision would be for the next round of investments at the zoo. And as you can see on the image above, the dark green are the areas that were completed in the 2008 bond measure. And the light green are the areas we know need more investment to keep going for the future. Next slide. We worked with many community organizations, our guests, our staff to figure out what does that plan look like for the future of the zoo. On this slide, you can just see a variety of the organizations we looked at and had provided their voice and input into what does the future look like. And that was about 2,000 different contacts. We also get weekly guest surveys. So we know what our guests need. We know where the pinch points are, and we know what our community wants to see from us in the future. Next slide. So we're going to continue, as always, focusing on animal health and well-being. We want to make sure education around conservation is a key focus of the role that we serve, continuing to reduce our consumption of water and energy, making sure everyone feels welcome at their community zoo, and supporting species recovery and conservation. Next slide. So starting with animal health and well-being, what does that look like? That looks like updating many of our outdated habitats. While we did a significant round of investments at the zoo for the last decade, we still have some of those habitats that are from the late 1950s, from the original Washington Park Zoo location. So we have infrastructure that's at risk of failing. I know you all probably deal with some of these conversations within your city. And we're looking at where do we need to invest strategically. Our penguin habitat is extremely outdated. It's from the late 1950s. That means it's about 65 years old. And we have potentially failing infrastructure in some of our marine life areas in the next few years. So we've prioritized how do we protect these animals and make sure they're getting the best care, and also looking at the different changes in weather and the experience people have at the zoo, not just people, but also the animals, and making sure we have good new habitats that incorporate modern standards, both for the animals, as also help us prepare for weather changes and make sure that our infrastructure is updated. I'll give you an example. A few months ago when we had the freezing rain, we didn't have power for about 4 days at the zoo, which is really risky with all of the animals in our care and our staff. However, we had used in that last round of bond funding some of those investments to upgrade our electrical infrastructure and our generators. And we ran on generator power for 4 days, and we were able to keep everybody safe and healthy. And if we didn't have the community support to make those investments happen, we would continue to be at risk. So I'm very grateful for that. Our focus is always going to be on making sure that people can figure out what their role is in connecting and understanding how to help wildlife. So all of the improvements have that as their driving focus and factor. We can go to the next slide. And I think just making sure, that we continue to want to reduce our water and energy. A big part of this would be updating our marine life systems and going to have a goal to become fossil fuel free by 2040, really walking our talk at the zoo. A big part of this is also just being really welcoming to our community. These are just sketch drawings as part of our campus plan design. But upon entering, how do you feel welcome? How do you know how to get around? Do you have what you need to get your day started? And just making sure people feel like they know how to navigate the zoo and they are comfortable while they do it. Because if you're not comfortable, you can't learn and engage in conservation. And I will just wrap it up with the role that we play in species recovery. I think many people don't know that the Oregon Zoo works really closely with state and federal agencies and tribal governments and nonprofit organizations to help save, breed, and recover endangered species that live locally. So investments with this critical work is going to support some of that. As Melanie said, here you see a sea otter. We are working with many tribal and federal agencies to support any reintroduction of this sea otter on the Oregon coast and figure out what role the Oregon Zoo would need to be able to play to foster that support. Hasn't been defined. There's no timeline there, but there are a lot of people working on that. And we know we're going to have a role to connect our visitors to that. We also have an offsite facility where we breed and recover California condors and release them in Northern California in hopes that one day we'll be able to see California condors flying back over Oregon. And we do several other species recovery programs for turtles, frogs, and butterflies. And some of those species are only still around because of the work that we do with the Oregon Zoo and the staff that know how to take care and breed these species. So I wanted to make sure you knew that specific role we play, and I'm going to turn it over to Melanie.
I just want to briefly say how proud I am to be part of this endeavor. They've done so much since the 2008 bond, and I'm really excited about the next bond and what can be accomplished in terms not just of animal care, but also in conservation and understanding the role that climate change is going to be playing in all of our lives, but certainly at our zoo. And so one exciting thing is that the bond will not require any more additional taxes than what people are paying currently. In fact, it will be slightly less, about 8.5 cents per $100,000 valuation of your property. The last one, I couldn't actually get a really firm number on it, but it was something between 8.5 and 9 cents. So it's a tiny bit tiny bit down, excuse me. And that would be about $2 a month for a home that was valued at $275,000. So we are happy to answer any questions that you have. I'll answer any questions having to do with the bond, and these guys will be the experts on everything else.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Lots to learn here. Always nice to hear about the Oregon Zoo and what we're doing, not just with animals, but with our community and, as you say, in the indigenous populations and in the name of conservation. Questions from the council? I have a couple, but start with Councillor Tan.
I was just curious, how you provide or how you get the feedback that's needed to determine what type of education or updates that you need to have to the zoo itself.
So in a variety of ways, on an ongoing basis, we hear from our guests on a weekly basis. We survey our guests every week.
Okay.
But for the design and development of what we want to see for the future, we had surveys, we brought in community partner organizations, and we had focus groups. And we brought in different focus groups of people from accessibility, with accessibility challenges and what they needed to see. We have like an 80-foot drop. If you've walked through the zoo, you know, right? It's very hilly. And what people feel like they need to be welcome. We worked with a variety of community groups and really just figured out, like, what do people want to see? We worked with teachers. We have a lot of school groups that come to the zoo. So what do they need from us in terms of making sure that they have a successful school visit when they're there? And then we work with board members and just community across the region. We got about 2,000 different inputs to help drive and design in different phases. The beginning, what are people looking for? And then as we started sketching, helping us move things around to meet the expectations it needs. It's a good question. It's really important. This is a community zoo, and it's really the community investment that makes it so special. So making sure we're meeting the expectations for the future. And this plan lays out what are we going to be doing for the next 10 to 15 years and tries to get us ahead of thinking where we need to be at that time frame.
Well, all I've got to do is say that I've really enjoyed going out to the zoo as an annual member. The other opportunity I've had was with the city of Wood Village as a counselor for many years and as a volunteer out at the airport. And where we've come out, as we were talking right at the very beginning of where you would invite us leaders to come out when they've had open houses and things. I've gone on 3 of those, and then one of them with my wife when they've opened up the polar and then the African area and also then the elephant. And that was the one my wife came with me on. And we were so impressed going behind the scenes and seeing all of that. When they did the African one, they also went over to the area where they were teaching all of the children, and I mean young adults, let's put that away, so that they could learn what it would be like to go out and then work with the public. And that was just eye-opening as all get out, because they had the 3 different stages of the kids. They had the really young ones learning to do behind the scenes stuff. Then they had the intermediates that would learn a little bit to do with what was going on. Then they had the advanced students that were just working with the 2 other groups. And then the advanced kids were out with the public. And that was just eye-opening as all get out to see that happening. And then, of course, you had those adults that were out there working with them. That was just unbelievable to see how that was working during the summer programs and stuff. So that's what got my wife and I to say, well, we need to really support the zoo. And that's when we joined, and so that we could get our grandchildren to be annual members as well. So I can do nothing but just praise our zoos here in Portland.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks,
that.
Councilor Clark and Tan, for those comments. You know, just because you just mentioned schools, I had a question. When a school comes there, are there fees to the school?
Are there fees?
Fees?
Yeah, there's fees. They're reduced. I can't tell you exactly what they are. That would be on our website, but yes, there are fees. But there's some schools that have, that get reduction in those fees or sponsorship from the Oregon Zoo and the Oregon Zoo Foundation.
Okay. You know, I was looking at that map, the beginning. Does Metro own all the property or are you having to acquire
Ooh.
property?
That's a really good question. We actually don't, we do own the property, but we're in the city of Portland's boundary of Washington Park. So it's park zone property. And we have to go through a lot of special permitting to get approvals to do all of these development. But we do own 64 acres within that Washington Park property. But about 46 of it is actually usable and developable because it's within the park. There's an environmental overlay zone.
For this phase two, are you going to have to acquire property or is this money all capital for improvements there?
Phase two is within the current boundaries of the zoo. We are assessing adjacent property owned by the city of Portland to see if we can procure that property. It's the former Portland Children's Museum location, which would allow us to have a little bit more flexibility for our growth because right now we are so constrained.
And it does seem like that would be part of a good plan to
Yeah,
keep acquiring some property.
yes.
You mentioned the bond, you're paying off the first one, so it's not an increase to anybody. And,
Right, the
and
first
that,
bond is complete.
and those campaigns are quite a bit easier than campaigns when you still are owing money on the last bond. So, I want the campaign to be successful, and I think that's a message right there that needs to be, talked about often.
I also think in this climate, it's a big message that we can say we actually completed it on schedule, on budget.
Yeah, no, those are two key terms when you're using bond money. You said the accreditation. Will you tell me that again, that there's only two
Yeah.
zoos in the country?
Two zoos in the country that have been accredited for 50 years.
Well, for 50
There are many,
years.
there are hundreds of zoos that have accreditation, but we were one of the first in the country to receive it. And we've maintained it that whole time, which is not easy to do. The standards keep changing as they should, as we learn more. And you have to keep up with those standards. Those standards are around animal health, well-being, space, your visitor experiences, your education programs, your safety programs. A variety, basically everything we do, our operations, all of that has targets.
Thank you.
But we're very proud of that.
Any other comments, questions? Greg?
I have one question and one comment. The question is, when you mentioned the zoo apprenticeship opportunity, especially targeting lower income kids or young adults at potential risk, what are the transportation options? Because getting from here to the zoo using public transportation is not the best. And so I'm wondering, do you offer anything to assist with that?
That is such a great question, and it sounds like a need, and it is something that we have identified recently so COVID was really hard for the zoo. The pandemic was really hard for the zoo. We were shut down. I mean, and it was hard for all of us. We lost about 30% of our staff. And coming out of that, it brings the opportunities to rethink and rebuild. And as we rebuild, a big part of that is our education programs. All of them are generally new, except for this zoo apprenticeship program, which we kept going. But we are finding out that access is one of the barriers. So what do we need to do to help get folks there? I don't have the answer for you, but I will make sure that we are addressing it. And then the ability to just, I think access and schedule and giving people more hours because it's a well-paid apprenticeship. And so making sure that we've actually increased their hours so that they can make it a more regular part of the sustainability of their lifestyle.
Great. And then my comment is I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to do a behind the scenes tour, got a pet and elephant. Actually, that's where I met you the first time. And we talked about all of the animal welfare programs. And it's not what, a lay person may think of as, oh, you care for the animals in the zoo. You're doing research. Like in this example was taking blood samples from the polar bears and how to synthesize antibodies and create new vaccines and new stuff for all polar bears. And I think we even talked about like elephant tuberculosis and means and methods to help with that. And so I just, I guess the question is, how do we help spread those messages that, you think, oh, breeding programs, people can get that, biodiversity, et cetera. The care goes beyond just the animals and critters you see at the zoo. This is a holistic care for these animals in other institutions or in the wild around the world. How do we help communicate that of all the work that's being done?
I love that you remember that. That is so important. It is such a part that's integral to the work that we do. We're one of the only zoos in the country that has our own endocrine lab, and that is where we can evaluate blood samples and stool samples right there to find out what is going on with our animals, use that data to then make management decisions quickly. And we also do that for some other zoos. We also go visit other countries, and we visit and support those who are trying to take care of animals in the wild, or what is being lost of the wild. And I would love Melanie to share a story with you about that in a moment. I think just knowing that we have a strong science program. We do scientific assessments and studies to make sure our animals are well taken care of. But that goes beyond our animals. It's helping polar bears in the wild. We're doing those assessments, as you mentioned. We'll test various diets. So how long can polar bears survive on a diet without their regular food? So when they start losing habitat in the wild, we have an assessment of what they're going to need to be able to survive. How far can they swim? If they have to swim between icebergs and ice patches, and they're melting, how far can they swim? What is their cardiovascular capability? We have a swim flume like chamber where we can test their breathing and their heart rate and how far they can go. And that helps people who are studying the bears in the wild know what the risk to their survival will be. So there's a lot that we're doing. We're doing a lot with elephant herpes virus, which is really damaging the wild population as well as the populations in zoos. And we're going to be launching a lab next year to have the equipment so we can test blood samples and know quickly if there's an elephant at risk and make sure that we can provide treatment really quickly. So state-of-the-art equipment, partnerships with the research organizations, and then knowing what the scientists want to understand, and then figuring out how we can do that with the animals in our care. I love that you remembered that.
And so how do we tell that story in a way that I don't want to say is like sexy, but in a way that it engages people, whether they're guests at the zoo, community members at large, and support? Again, it's not just you're building, new spaces, you're supporting wildlife. How do we tell
and
those
habitat,
stories?
yes, protection, what is happening to the animals in the wild. I'm going to have Melanie share a story with you that I think is going to help you share the story because it's a unique one.
Have you
Okay,
considered
I
a
wanna-
lap pool for hours?
Sorry?
Have you considered a lap pool for hours? And
So I am going to share a story, but first I'm going to say that the zoo recently hired Shervin Hess to be their head of conservation. Shervin is just a genius at social media. And if you go to the zoo website, you'll see a lot of their videos on conservation. But then you have to reach out and go to the zoo website to do that. We also, on the Oregon Zoo Foundation, we put out a newsletter to several thousand people, and it every week has a story on the zoo. So I will tell you my personal story very quickly. I'm born and raised in Portland, but I married a man who's got traveling in his blood. And so he became a diplomat. We lived overseas for about 35 years. The last overseas assignment, he was ambassador to Malaysia. So my project became working with the animals and the conservation issues in Borneo, Malaysian Borneo. When we were there, a horrible thing happened. And that is that, as you may know, palm plantations are just spreading out into areas that used to be animal corridors or, the basic territory that they would walk in. And some of the palm growers didn't like the fact that the elephants would still come through and maybe knock their trees down. So one of them filled a bunch of palm nuts with poison and killed a herd. Now, there were about 6 baby elephants that survived. And so my husband and I went out there to see what the U.S. Embassy could do to help and so forth. And when I was there, having not been in Portland, I think I left Portland in 1976. I learned that the Oregon Zoo was providing infant elephant milk powder to save that herd of elephants. And a little later, they all got EHV, the elephant herpes virus, which is very common among juvenile elephants, especially when they're in a very compact area, which they had to be because they are orphans. And, you hear the folks talk about, send the elephants back into the wild. You cannot. They are familial. They will not take an orphan elephant in. And then I learned it was the Oregon Zoo that was providing the medicine and going out and helping teach the wildlife workers out there what to do. And so when my husband finally retired, like it was never going to happen, when he finally retired and I came back to Portland, the first thing I did was sign up to be on the Oregon Zoo Foundation. I'm now the head of advocacy. And what you're asking for is everything we're working hard to make happen. So thank you for that question.
Way to go, City Manager Dirks. Good question. I have one that it kind of goes along with telling a story. My wife and I, we watch Jack Hanna on Saturday mornings. Okay. And I always hear about the Columbus Zoo. So it really sounds like we could have the promotion of the Portland Zoo. The Oregon Zoo, is it called? We call it the Oregon Zoo, yeah. So it just seems like the story that we're just talking about here is the nexus of what the zoo is doing and much about. I think about, again, back to costs. Okay, so I'm going back to families in many parts of our cities, they don't have access to even transportation, as Greg said, but they wouldn't be able to, I don't know how much it costs now to get into the zoo. But are there ways in which you're reaching out to those communities so we can help those communities also
Yes.
understand this resource?
That's such a priority for us. So I love that you bring that up. We want to make sure that we are accessible to everybody in our region. We have discount tickets, but so that is one way people can get into the zoo. But we also are working with community partners. And if after the fact, if you have organizations in your community that want to connect with us, I would highly recommend you connect us to those community organizations that are serving your community. And then we work with them to distribute tickets. So we provide free tickets to those organizations to give out to their members and the people that they're helping to support. That I think is probably a really good next step. And I would imagine there's information on our website where you can reach us, but City Manager, you know how to find me directly.
Well, that's excellent because we do have an organization, nonprofit out here called Play East. It serves many of our populations and families. So thanks for that. And I'm sure you wrote it down because I did too.
I already wrote it down.
Good. Thank you. Other questions or, we could carry this conversation on, but we do have more on the agenda, but this is maybe the funnest one.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for supporting us and having us with you tonight.
And I
Yes.
hope it's not inappropriate or a bribe, but we would love to have you guys come down to the zoo and let's on the foundation side where we put on these tours, see what we can put together.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank
put us down, Greg. Let's put something together. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I hope you have lots of success as you go around and meet with people and talk about this. Okay.
Thank you for your evening time.
All right, we will, as Greg shows our guests out, we could move on to, I believe. No, we can't. We'll wait just a minute and,
Have fun in Texas?
I had a lot of fun in Texas. I always do. I always think about you when I'm down there too. When I'm going through West Texas.
Yeah.
All right.
Easter egg, I think.
We're back to
would-
the Easter debrief.
I'm sorry.
What, I don't know, I was going to give us a brief recess so you can politic. But, let's see if we can put something together. We all can roll and see, get behind the scenes in the gorilla cage or something.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Marielle and get the coordination for like a council zoo tour. Also, in addition to Play East, I thought of the natural leaders in their connection with, I think, I forget the nonprofit they're tied with, but that may be another good vehicle to get people to the zoo that might not otherwise be able to get there. So a lot of opportunities with this.
Wow,
Yeah.
passionate idea there.
Okay, Greg, the gateway sign construction.
Do we want to do Easter egg real quick?
Yeah.
And I thought,
Well, it may not be real quick, but let's do it first.
yeah, so my thought with pulling it out of consent is, it was a big event. A lot of people attended. And I think from a staff's perspective, we saw some things that I think from a guest experience weren't quite optimal. We also know that I think, everyone with I don't want to call it the mayor for not being there, but everyone from the council, except the mayor, was there. As well as some other long-term community volunteers. And I think, they had overall a very good, experience talking with community members, handing out candy, seeing the kids, seeing the families. So one just wanted to have an opportunity to get your sides of what you saw, and then just start planting a little seed of maybe some potential revisions for this event that can continue to grow the event, increase the connectivity and outreach, and, still provide for a quality guest experience. So if either of you two want to share your experiences, then we can talk about maybe some ideas for the future.
I think before the event, I guess it started when everyone started coming, but before the actual egg hunt started happening, it went well. I think everyone was content, and there's just a lot of excitement, different things to do and just roaming around the area. But then as the first event happened and then following, it was just, it seemed to be, there was a lot of chaos. And then there was also room to find reason for what went wrong on a community perspective, and as, someone that was volunteering and, observing as well. So, having to facilitate and answer questions that we couldn't, it was out of our control. And I think that was one of the toughest things that were out of our control.
Yeah, we didn't want to use the term mob mentality, so we've rebranded to Hunger Games. And
Yes.
how do we de-Hunger Game the event?
Well, I thought that Councillor Tan did an excellent job. We spent a lot of time together at the very beginning of the entrance, and we saw right off that there was a huge line that went all the way to the end of the parking lot. And we grabbed bags and we started passing them out to try to get rid of the line, but they did not want to leave because they wanted the freebies.
Or they didn't even know why there was a line. They just got in it because
Yeah,
there
they
was a
did.
line.
But they still wanted freebies, and the freebies were disappearing as fast as possible. Our problem is the weather was too good. And so we tried to do everything we could to relieve the anxieties that some people had. And we told them that there was signage up front that would tell them when the Easter egg hunts were for the different age groups. And each one of us fielded so many questions on it, the fact that there was just nothing for 2-year-olds. And that led into the biggest problem of all, that there's just nothing for 2-year-olds. And so there was a lot of parents that said that, well, they just put their 2-year-olds out there in the 3-year-old, 4-year-old hunts. And
With the parent.
so I even took film of that activity, and the parents actually minded when I caught them with 2-year-olds out there. They abandoned them and left them with me. And so I'm sitting there and they had these great big bags that I'm filming, and the parents walked off, and then here I am stuck with 3 little 2-year-olds, and I had to help pick up eggs for them and then march them back over to their parents. And like I said, I have this all on film, other than the fact that I'm the one picking up the eggs and you can't see this, right?
Okay.
But I did love the fact that the parents did follow those rules. The other thing is that I'm guilty of is that I was looking at the arrangement of how are these parents all going to go through this really small gate? So I gave them permission to put their children over the top of the fence. And I told them that do not cross the line
White
here.
line.
You can stay over there. And then I tried to get other people to do the same thing in the other places and nobody was following that. And I thought, oh boy, have I really started something here? And then our little area worked out really well with that, except for the parents at the gate that put their 2-year-olds out. Otherwise, then I was working with, trying to remember his name now. He was on the council. I took his place. Help me out real quick.
Bruce?
Bruce,
Yeah.
yes, thank you, Bruce. And he was just kind of like going, oh, I'm giving up on the parents that were out there working with their kids. But they didn't seem to be causing any huge problem. They were just leading their 2-year-old children again to pick up eggs. And we didn't see anybody getting knocked over or anything, but there were children out there that didn't get any eggs that were crying. And of course, we had candy and stuff like we would usually have. And we were all prepared with sacks of candy that Caroline gave us.
And the
We could,
eggs, yeah.
and eggs that we could give them. So like you said in your report, though, that there were 3 lost children that did eventually find their parents. But
In
but there
other
was just thousands,
thousand, and that's what,
hundreds, there were
the
thousands.
comment from Council President Rios Campos was he thought we underestimated the population of the event. He pegged it closer to 3,000. And it's just, when you get a crowd that size, it's big. I think we can agree on that. Other parts of the 3 and 4-year-old field that Caroline and I were closer to, parents ran over the orange construction fencing to get in the field and did knock over other children, which kind of begs a question between the comments about nothing for kids under 3, and there are older kids, 10, 11, that would still like something meaningful to do. And that's kind of some suggestions and ideas here. Do we get away from the hunt, aspect, which has long ago been abandoned as a gathering? There's no hunting for the eggs. And doing something more similar to what Pumpkin Fest looks like, where obviously this would be more spread out and things to accommodate maybe some larger guest count. But you're going from like different booths or stations, and there's different activities, and families can enjoy them at the time they want to enjoy them. We heard comments from other families saying, this needs to hurry up. We've got 3 more hunts to get to, which is common for an Easter weekend, especially for a very nice Easter weekend. There's a lot of Easter activities. If it's rebranded where these things don't happen at this, exact prescribed time, could it actually be more enjoyable? Those that want to get into what it's about, do their thing and leave, can. Those who want to stay and enjoy what the event has to offer are free to do that as well. So again, we don't need to decide what we want to do tonight. Just start thinking about what we want this event to be, what's its intent, and how it can facilitate that experience for our perspectives and our guest perspectives. And maybe we'd bring this back like in September to have a discussion and make a plan forward.
Wait, sorry.
No, well, I wasn't at this one, but but I've been at numerous other events, and one of the things we won't ever be able to control is weather. So if it's nice, we're going to have people, and if it's starting to rain, we're not going to have quite as many. The other thing is, I was proud, and I still tell people, but I run into people, they're from Vancouver and they're from Camas, and and I was proud of the fact that they come to Wood Village for the Easter egg hunt. But I would like to, based on that staff report and the comments here, and Jairo talked to me, I would like to also make sure that we do serve our community, kind of gets a first shot at it at least. And I like being successful and the most popular around and all that.
We won the popularity contest.
Yes. But I would like us to think too in terms of serving our community. And our community isn't just Wood Village, but it's Troutdale, it's Fairview, it's East County. And I read your options and things to think about. So I think that it'll be another, it's a good thing for us to think about. Success.
I can remember we had a grand Easter egg that had a color TV in it when TVs were so
The
expensive.
golden egg.
The golden egg,
Well, you guys had a helicopter come in here.
Oh, yeah,
The
I've flown
helicopter
on it.
one time.
I was the Easter
Well, you
bunny.
were
I've
bunny.
flown in on it.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah, I
gonna,
remember that. Yeah.
I flew on it twice.
it takes iterations. I
twice.
mean, we do have to keep thinking about these events. So as they morph into other things that we're ready to accommodate it because I could just see you two down there trying to calm the group and
It was,
throw
I think it was the parents.
candy and,
It's always been the parents.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the feedback that we get from the parents
Oh, yeah, I
about,
imagine.
you know, it not being fair.
Yeah.
Um,
why didn't you think about this? Why are you doing this? This is a mess and I got to go to
how are
another.
you going to control these kids that just dump their candy and
Mhm.
from one side to?
And that's where if you redesign the whole experience, you take some of that out of play. But again, something to think on.
You know,
I fell over in the parking lot. I,
trampled by
No.
2-year-olds.
yeah. No, it was
Just
the,
running for candy.
I was passing out those bags and I
Oh,
didn't
the
see
curb.
the curb. And then I fell on top of this young man and he got out from underneath me and looked what at me and he just shot off like crazy. And I was trying to say, are you okay? Because I wasn't.
Yeah, the
Man.
official story is the young man tripped you.
He what?
Young man tripped you. That's
Yeah,
the
yes,
official
okay.
story.
Yeah. You know, one of your other comments about utilizing more of the park, that would also be a way to expose people that might not have explored Donald Robertson Park much, but an egg, whatever it's called.
I think we had
bunny,
like
what you call
a bunny
Bunny hop
walk or I don't know. We'll wordsmith.
Yeah, but you know, that also could be a part of this. It'd be nice to spread people out if there's a bunch so we can have conversations with people and.
Or spread the eggs out in the upper part of the park?
I mean, or at least have stations up like in the Arboretum, stations down by the gazebo.
Hide them in the trees and all that stuff. Okay. Enough, Greg, you got for
Yeah,
comments?
I think I just wanted the opportunity for people to share their experience, their thoughts, and then start planning some ideas for what, if we want to revise it, what that could look like, and we'll bring it back again, probably September time.
Well,
We cannot thank enough of our sponsors. My goodness, this was just amazing.
It is.
Caroline is great at
And-
getting
Oh
us
my
resources.
gosh. That was just tremendous. If we could send a card around the table and have us all sign it. I think we used to do that too.
That's Caroline, don't we thank our sponsors after each event, don't we? Or, I mean.
But if we can
Okay.
do thank you cards.
Yeah, think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are helpful for sure. All right, if we are done with that discussion, let's go down to the gateway sign.
All right. So this is the bid award for our gateway sign. So quick recap of it. So we do have two gateway signs on 238th. I guess technically one is 242nd. So one's by the interchange and one's just up the hill here. They were installed early 2000s, rehabbed in 2009 for rot and deterioration as they were just direct buried in the dirt. So we created some foundation. The wood was still natural wood untreated, so they continue to deteriorate, and we put them in the budget to replace. And we brought a design with a design option to you in the urban renewal in February. You said, go forth, get it out to bid. These are the two existing gateway signs and a little more of their former glory. They're a little more weathered now, but we'll be replacing them shortly. So we advertised a project in the Business Tribune and the city's website in March and gave about a full month for that bid, for those bids to come in. We had a bid opening April 2nd. There's one qualified bidder, Lee Contractors LLC. If that name sounds familiar, they did all the Gorge Hub improvements back in 2019. So that was the enhanced ADA access by the restrooms, the retaining walls, all that nice stonework. That's this firm. So we have a good working relationship with them. Their bid was $177,636. But we need to make an adjustment, and it was our error. On the bid sheets, we didn't want to specifically specify a certain electronic message center unit. And so we pulled some of the details that we got out from Ramsey Signs that provided the cost estimates and some of the specifications. And in that, we forgot to mention it's a dual-sided one. So they bid a single-sided one, and so they're going to adjust it for that dual-sided one. So that's why we have in there to make the bid award not to exceed the budgeted amount of 210,000. And they're confident, and we're pretty confident that adjustment will not exceed that. Just again, for a reminder, this is the sign structure itself, the interior part, the actual sign. We haven't developed that sign yet. We're going to work on that next. But this is the base sign structure itself. And I want to talk quickly because at the meeting in February, we talked about electronic message centers. Will they be distracting? What are going to be the elements and components? And I touched on it briefly, but wanted to reemphasize it again. So our municipal code or our zoning development code regulates electronic signs. The whole code section is there, but basically the crux of it is you can't have video, you can't have moving graphics, you can't have flashing lights, and there are brightness limits at nighttime. So it's essentially different static messages, and you can have fun graphics and make them vibrant and attractive, but no different than you could for like, static billboard or other kind of static sign. And with the limits at night, when we developed this code over a decade ago, we actually had a sample sign brought out and they showed us what that brightness is. And it's still, see easily at night, but it's not bright. It's not in your face. There's also a question about, great, we do all these cool messagings like these examples here, but how do we know it's Wood Village? Again, we get to craft all of these graphics. And by we, I mean Caroline gets to craft all of these graphics.
Ooh.
And so, for example, this says Memorial Day. Well, it could be, Wood Village wishes you a happy Memorial Day. Wood Village wants you to have a great day. The Wood Village, we don't have a festival of lights, but tree lighting. We can always brand every message with Wood Village. Even just the example here with the rendering, just simple welcome to Wood Village. We'd make it fancier than that though. So Wood Village will be part of the messages.
Good, thanks, Greg. So when I'm looking here at this example, welcome to Wood Village. I mean, that's really what we want people to know. And then that space down there that shows the time and the temp.
Yeah.
Well, no, but wouldn't that be where you would put a message?
A thought could be like this Memorial Day one up here.
Okay.
Rotate.
Yeah, it rotates.
Yeah.
So it could be,
Damn.
Wood Village wishes you, a happy
Okay.
Memorial
All
Day.
right.
And again, we can always have the welcome to Wood Village as a regular part of the rotation. That comes up, maybe that's every other slide is
Mhm.
welcome to
If we
Wood
know the
Village.
weather's
Yeah.
really good,
Yeah.
Easter egg has been canceled.
Yeah.
The bunny will not be there.
Halsey closed ahead, use alternative route.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just want to point out, we get this, we're using it for a period of time and we're like, God, it's still not Wood Village enough. The upper beam is 12 inches tall. So there's still opportunity to add some lettering or something to that. And I just want to mention anecdotally, I had a conversation with a long-term community member who called a few weeks ago, upset that when we put banners up, it blocks the sign. She called last year and she called again and I said, well, I may have good news for you. I'm not sure. I said, we're redesigning our gateway signs. And, the one that will be up top of the hill, this stone structure is tall enough to fit our banners. So we can anchor it, make some anchor points, put our banners on the stone portion, not block the Wood Village portion. And then I mentioned how we've also then have an electronic sign that we can then just rotate out messages. And she said, as long as we're promoting Wood Village, it's a good thing. So, we do have a suggested motion in your staff report. The name was wrong. It's Lee Contractors, not Lee Contracting. But here's the suggested motion and happy to answer any questions.
Counselor Stan, Counselor Clark,
Yeah, no questions.
no questions here either. So is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution 8-2024 awarding the gateway sign construction project to Lee Contractors LLC. Exceed $210,000.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll be in contact with them tomorrow, start the contracting process and get digging.
Okay.
All right, love this.
All right, Mr. Reeser, utility rate. Discussion,
Discussion, yeah.
discussion, no action needed on this one.
No, this is a recap and next steps for the changes, proposed changes for the utility rates.
And we've seen this once before though, right?
Yes.
In discussion, yeah. Okay,
So this is going to be recapping the discussion you guys had on your October 10th, 2023 council meeting. And we just point now where we're going to start launching some materials. We wanted to bring it back in for you, get any additional feedback you might have, and go on from there. So just to recap, we brought you some analysis about our customer base. We had a couple of goals going into the utility rate. And we found out that business is a really, really big part of our usage for water and sewer. 10 properties account for more usage than all the single-family homes in Wood Village, which are significant. And it makes our revenues very volatile. This kind of shows the how much of our business accounts are kind of front-loaded. 3 of the accounts make up almost 40% of the revenue for business. These were the proposed rates. And again, this rate structure had, and I'll come back to this. I forgot that I did it this way. So we talked about and presented as follow-up a sewer volume charge for residential. Currently now all residential just pays a flat base charge. There's no, if you use flush a lot of water down the sewer or don't, you pay the same. This allows for residents to control some of the cost of sewage. For that same reason, we wanted to remove the 4 units of water, the 10 or 100 CCF from the base. And this again allows for users to adjust their behavior and be able to control their costs. A couple of minor changes. We want to change our some of our rates for fire hydrant charges to match. And then our multifamily discount has varied. It's currently around 5%. We would just like to fix that at 10% of a discount off of the base charge. And the reason why multifamily gets a reduction on that part is it's easier to bill multifamily homes because we only have to send and process 1 bill rather than for single family homes. One of the big things we talked about was the retirement income program. It's not a seniors program. It's a retirement income. So currently the program offers a 25% discount on the base charge. The water base ends up being about $80, $85 a year. The sewer base discount ends up being about $200 a year. Now, one of the issues that we have with this is that if by taking out the volume charges that are baked into the base charge, we're actually lowering the base charge significantly. If you look back at the, oh, I normally don't do that. If you look back at the base, I didn't break it out by base, but the base charge, I think for water is going down by about $8 a month. And for sewer, so yeah, the water base charge is going to drop from $28 to closer to $20. And the sewer charge is going to drop closer to $40, which means that the discount is actually, the value of the discount would actually change because of those structural changes.
So a person would save potentially more.
Less.
But
They're getting a lesser of a discount because their savings is on the base charge only. And since we're
Okay,
reducing the base charge, the value of the program declines.
Yeah, okay.
We also pointed out that there is no means testing for the retired income program. We don't check income. There's not a requirement to. We also don't reach out and verify whether or not they are still retired or whether or not they have, as part of the application, you have to certify that there's no other adults besides you and your spouse living in the house. We don't actually reach out and verify that once the application happens.
Councilman Clark, you and I have to go back to work.
Yes.
Nope, we'll have to get rid of the kids in the basement.
Well,
Okay.
you only have to get rid of your
That too, man.
You have to get rid of your adult children in the basement. You can keep the grandkids.
We can keep our
Yeah, the
grandkids.
grandkids,
Oh,
adult
said
children.
adults.
Yeah,
it's the adults.
Yes.
yeah, 1 shower a week.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We also, at the time that this program was created, we didn't have a low income assistance program of any kind. We now have the ability for people to apply for assistance if they're low income to cover up to 2 bills a year. Our minimum bill for water and sewer is close to $100, so it's about comparable to what the senior discount would be with the reduced base charge. We propose to offer folks who are on this program the ability to apply for up to 3 times a year. So it'd actually be more than, if they're low income, they would get better or more benefit than they would under the current program. We have 52 participants. We get to, yes. So We looked at the usage for all of our participants that are in the retired income. So 4 units is what's baked in to the base charge. So you can see that there are some folks here at the tail end that would benefit from the reduction in, or the change to allow for variable rates for both sewer and water. Our average is about 6, so you can see that's right about here. We had quite a few accounts that had a lot of usage, which was surprising. We kind of assumed that if you didn't have that many adults in the house and whatnot, that you weren't going to have, we were expecting seniors, the retired income program, to have a lower average usage than our system, and it was actually higher, which was a little bit surprising. We also noticed that the seasonal average for this group spiked significantly more than our average users. So folks who are in the retired income program, when summer comes around, they triple their water usage. Most people, they double it. So we've done some more analysis on the people in the program and trying to understand kind of what the impacts are going to be to help craft the messaging and the outreach that we want to do. And so we wanted to share that with you, give you an informational update before we start telling people we're going to make you kick your adult children out of your basement.
Yeah, or, can't go out there on the summertime with the old people and water your lawns.
Or they all have swimming pools, huh?
I don't make value judgments based on
Yeah, well.
water. So the other thing that we talked about was volatility. And, one of the things that we are doing as part of the budget is moving some more of our one-time capital into sinking funds so that it smooths out our expenditures over a 10 to 20-year period. So we don't see, spikes in need as much as we can. Obviously, that's going to happen when it needs to, but the things that we can plan for that are known, we're going to try and smooth out some of the volatility within our billing, within the water usage and the weather by doing some more planning and setting aside money for future expenses. And so next steps. So we were planning on running an article on the retired income discount in the next change in the next newsletter. We want to do phone outreach to everyone who's currently a participant, phone or mailing directly. We're planning on having an open house for all of the utility rate structure changes in September. And the plan would be to bring feedback and propose changes for approval from the council in the October, 1 year to October council meetings. So that's our plan for how we're going to, these are what the changes are, and this is kind of how we're planning on doing outreach and rolling them out. We wanted to pause here and see if you guys were still okay with us moving forward on this, and if you had any feedback or wanted any additional community outreach. Go ahead.
I have a question. Have we had an outreach where people are signing up more? Of these 53 people, have they been on this program for a long time?
Some of them have been on since 2008. I think we've had 3 or 4 sign up in the last year. So I would say it's probably a couple a year for the last 15 years we've got on the program.
I'm not on it. I don't think. Am I on it? I don't think so. I have no idea.
I had Becky strip out the names from the accounts before I.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
I'm not on it.
I've never signed up for it. I didn't know if we just automatically see the old.
No, you
people.
have to submit an application that shows that you're receiving retirement income.
And in the past, that used to be promoted in the newsletters and things, but it was a few years back, we stopped actively promoting it when it was thought it may morph or evolve into something else, but we haven't prevented anyone who digs into our code and to our billing rates and reads about it from signing up for it, because it is adopted as part of the rate structure. So if they read, dig into the details, they'll see it.
Now, and I making some jokes here about seniors.
Retired income recipients.
Mostly try to do it at Councilor Clark's expense, but
That's good.
But seriously, there are people in our community that this could be something that it actually does get their attention, and it means they got to make some kind of changes. When I said you're eliminating the discount. But I thought the concept was here that for seniors or for everybody, you pay less if you use less.
Yes,
And so that's true also of seniors.
yes.
So it could equal itself out. I mean,
If someone were to change their behavior, yes.
and I don't mean, go showering, but I mean, I don't want to be disingenuous about how you might talk about this.
And the goal and the way we
But-
did the rate structure was we did it so that with the anticipation that we're not going to receive any additional revenue from this. This is not a way for us to get more money from our ratepayers. It's a giving control of people, we've received feedback from people that have been unhappy that they've reduced their water usage and they don't see any reduction in their bill because they use less than the 4 units. And there is no variable charge for residential on the sewer side. So people right now really don't have a lot of control or a lot of ways of managing their money by changing their behavior. This gives them that. But what it also does is the folks that I mentioned are really high water users will see an increase in their bills.
Yeah, it was designed that if you're less than the 4 units, you're going to save money. If you're about 4 or 5 units, it's about the same. If you use more than that, it's going to be more. That's how the rate structure is designed.
And
But that's only going to be during the summer though.
If you use more water during the winter.
There are some that, again, we've looked at the data, and some people actually use more water in the wintertime than they do in the summertime. Can explain the whys behind it, but that's also why we're, in looking at the sewer cost essentially based on usage, we're using either winter average or the lower number. So let's just say the wintertime you use a lot, then the summertime you don't. We're not going to penalize you for your summer water use because for some reason you use more in the winter. The idea was more people are irrigating, filling up pools, playing in sprinklers in the summertime. That's not going down the sewer. Let's not charge them for that. Let's charge them based on when they're not doing outdoor activities.
okay, just to make sure now, so the council, that was the concept as we started into this. Everybody still comfortable that we want to, you use more water, you're going to pay more.
Yeah.
And another advantage we talked about was we're not going to hit people with an 8% increase a year down, surprising with those increases. We're stabilizing how we're going to have to pay for this over time. And if increases come, they're going to be a gradual increase.
Right.
Okay.
I like how you have thought out like the communication piece. And then the education behind that and more layers to that. So that way it's just not a big shock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
52 people's a lot.
Hmm.
And
You may hear from
impact them.
52 people.
Right. And so, or there could be more, that, hey, I didn't know about this or whatever that is. And it would be a big community impact, but the way we're going about it, I think it's well planned.
And that's where we wanted to have one more touch point with you all, just to bring it back, double check, as now we're going to launch this, that this is what
Yeah.
you at least want the people to consider, think about, and provide feedback on.
Mhm.
I mean, if this thing just kind of blows up on us here with the elders, then we can talk about that some more.
But at least we have more structure behind it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. The way we're rolling it out, we're trying to be as forthright. And outreach is maybe there's other ways we can do outreach.
Well, I'm sure like at the night out and some of our events, we can have additional literature, information, take some comments.
But up until this point, we haven't really done any outreach. So we will use the social media and city events and ways to get the word out. But we wanted to, before we launched into that and kind of let that ship leave the harbor, we wanted to check in with you guys and.
We're still giving you thumbs up, all right?
Yeah.
Till the shooting starts, and then we'll.
Make it.
What you'll see is
They
that
fill out that form.
some folks will see a reduction in their water. usage people, and the higher usage people will see an increase. Not really any way to make, we tried coming up with a way that everybody saw their bill go down and we just, math didn't work out on it. So, all right.
All right, Seth? Are we all, everybody good? Yeah. Hey, Seth, purchasing policy.
Yeah, yes, so I'm gonna stay with you.
Nope, diagonal down. Over, nope. You were on it.
Okay, hold on, give me a second.
To the right, nope. Down. Right there.
Purchasing policy, that's why I made it go in big letters. Sorry. All right. So, again, another discussion item for you, mayor and councilors. Purchasing policy. So we have one, helps us guide how we buy things like doing competitive sealed bids for a gateway sign. A lot of what we do is governed by the Oregon Revised Statutes, what's commonly known as the Oregon Public Contracting Code. The idea is that the state wants to make sure that all public funds and projects are open to everyone and available to be bid on by everyone. So there's no favoritism, cronyism, get around that. In the last legislative session, the last long session in 2023, there was a bill that raised the limits on contracting requirements because the limits had not been updated in 20+ years. The last time we updated our policy, which was getting closer to the limits that were currently in place, was in 2016. So this is what our purchasing limits currently are. If it's over 150,000, we have to do a competitive quote, RFP sealed bids. Anything under 150,000 is 3 informal quotes, written informal quotes, and then we have verbal quotes under 5,000. Under $750, we don't require quotes. Just, we don't want our employees driving around half a day to shop for hammers at all the different hardware stores. Just buy one and get back to the jobs that they're currently working on. We also have some internal cost control measures, which aren't part of the state guidelines, but they kind of govern what we do, which is any contract that's over $50,000 must go to council for approval. Anything under that, the city manager can approve. And then we require anything that's over $750 to go through our accounting system. If it's under that, folks can get a paper requisition, have their boss sign it same day and purchase what they need to get. So what you'll see here is that there are the current limits the state has, what the Senate bill in the last legislative session did to change the limits, and what we currently do. So the current limit was 10,000, it raises to 25. Our limit was 5,000 for small procurement. Those are things that don't require any written quotes. Intermediate procurement is kind of that middle section of that inverted pyramid. Depending on the type of procurement range, the limit was anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000. And the minimum was anywhere from 10 to 100,000. So they raised the limits on most of these so that it gives more flexibility. And these are the ones that you can do with 3 informal quotes rather than going out for competitive bidding. So a good example of this is under the old limits, we would have to go out for competitive bid for the gateway sign. Under the new limits, we would not if we chose to raise those. And that's kind of, I'm trying to think of another project that kind of would fall in that range. What might fall in that range are our pavement preservation, the street survey seals. We usually try and get something around $120,000 to $150,000. So those are ones that would kind of fall into this new range of what the state has allowed. And then finally, there's the big procurements. The only change they made was for goods and services. They bumped it from $150,000 to $250,000. So we wanted to bring this to you and see if you guys were amenable to updating our limits that we currently have to match the ones that the state rose, because we haven't done that. We were already below the limits and we haven't done an update in 8 years on what that is. And then we were also looking at our internal process as kind of signing authority, because that hasn't been updated in over a decade. And Becky was complaining to me about it. So that's part of the reason why this made it in here, is that verbal authorization, rather than the limit being 750, would be 1,000. Written authorization from the department head could get you instead of up to 2,500 would be 5,000, which means we go to Greg with less stuff. And then based on feedback the council's given to Greg about just going and doing more stuff, written authorization, we would raise the limit for what's required from council resolution from 50,000 to 75,000. So none of this is required. This isn't something that we're mandated to do by the state. This is all within your purview of whether or not you want us to move forward with this. And as we were looking at our purchasing policy, which we've updated numbers quite a bit, but the substance of the text really hasn't been updated since the early 2000s. So our current policy is about 1.5 pages. The model policy that the League of Oregon Cities does is 28 pages. Some of it's a little bit of overkill, but the reality is that unless we adopt a lengthier policy, we fall under the Oregon Revised Statutes that kind of detail out what you have to do for public contracting. So we've been having to abide by these regulations and essentially follow this model policy because it's the state's policy that we fall under, since we haven't prescriptively said what we're doing for public contracting. So the idea would be to update our policy and to incorporate all the definitions, appeals, surplus property, legal provisions that we already have to follow and are following. It just makes it explicit and creates a record, again, for continuity for staff of if, we have our payroll clerk leave, then the next person coming on can look at our policy and everything that's required from the Oregon Revised Statutes and Oregon administrative rules is clearly laid out of what you're supposed to do when you are advertising a bid, are evaluating a bid, opening a bid, and doing contract awards. Again, we already do that, and our engineering tech is really great about running that, but this just kind of formalizes and sets it down in writing. And we would also include the 1-page summary, kind of similar to what we have, which is really what you need to know. That way you don't have to always go to the 30-page document. So that's kind of what we're coming and talking to you about.
Thanks, Seth. Some will respect some housekeeping, but also some improvements that, if we haven't updated some of those limits over whatever the years are, it seems like it's cumbersome for staff if we don't do some of that. But I'm gonna comments from council. You gotta.
When I read this, I thought it was very reasonable and very responsible for the council to allow you to have this power, Greg. I can remember back in 2002 that it was $50 to do anything. And anything above that, we had to have 3 bids. And I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous in 2002. So I'm.
Councilor Dan, yeah,
I think it's reasonable.
yeah. Well, you're hearing it.
It's important to know also, like, yes, the purchasing authority will go up, but anything of note always goes to budget, always comes before you.
Yeah.
You'll know what's coming up. And again, with the list of bills paid, the check register, you could always have the ability to ask, what was this on? So we'll craft this a little more formally, put it together for your future adoption.
And then update, we're saying the same thing, update to the state limits.
And I think it's hurt us too, because in the past where we put out for bids on things that we've not received them because we've asked for bids. And so the people that they would go like, why am I having to put out a bid for something so little?
Yeah, it is a process when contractors put together a whole formal sealed bid. It's big, and not that necessarily would ask for less per se, but it's a different process when it's not a formal sealed bid. Another example was a few years back when we bought our new truck and plow and sander combo. Since we did it as a combo, that increased it over the $50,000 mark. We had to hit pause on the ordering, find time to bring it back to council, because we did it as a package, not, we'll buy a plow and sander, we'll buy a truck. So there's some efficiencies to gain, but I think from your perspective, it'll look
When you want to
similar.
bring it back to us for action.
Whenever Becky lets me put it on schedule.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, probably be May. Yeah.
Okay. All right, next item is our Opportunity Scholarship.
All right. Hopefully, what will be a fun discussion. I broke it. Oh, sorry. Having problems.
I was stuttering a little bit because the screen in front of me kept flashing on and off and I was trying to figure
All
out
right.
how to fix it or move on.
So discussion opportunity scholarship. So a bit of background. So this started in 2020. It morphed from what we originally designed as like an honor roll recognition for Wood Village students, weren't getting cooperation from schools, et cetera. It morphed from that into a formal scholarship, and not just for those exiting high school or alternative school, but those who essentially have completed a program and are going to pursue higher education. Whether it's a college, community college, university, or recognized trade school. And the idea was we want to target those who maybe weren't necessarily an academic all-star, but could be either a diamond in the rough or someone that is on that edge that with a boost can go on and do incredible things. Or if not, maybe they get left behind, and we wanted to try to capture them to boost them up and bring more value to our community and themselves. So over the past several years, we've been doing this program. We've had, a few enough applicants to award all those who applied. There's been a sliding scale. The minimum amount is 1,250. We've awarded up to 2,000 plus a stipend. And there really hasn't been any formal criteria in which we're evaluating these scholarships. There's some essay questions and there's some other information. And it's kind of been, that's a good story. This kind of fits what we're looking for. So they get a bit more. And then there's someone who's like, yep, they checked all the boxes. They did all the things. They'll get the minimum. Now that this program's taking off more and that we're getting more interest in it, we thought, and from the review committee last year said, I think it's time to kind of take another look at this and maybe put in some more structure. So how it had worked, we would open up the application in June, which is actually quite late when you think most high school scholarship application periods or someone's enrolling into a school to start in the fall semester or trimester. There'd be a council review committee. They would review them in July and then would award late July, if not deep into August. And as I said, the specific amounts were just kind of based off of how the review committee felt about the materials. We have conducted one application one applicant in all that time. It was kind of a recognition that the application was a weaker one, and the thought was maybe they just didn't present well on paper. So let's have a discussion. So the proposed process and what's presented before you is we'd actually start the application period. The period would be May. So instead of in June, we're bumping it up a month. The existing qualifications and application questions would remain. And in your packet, you've seen we attached what that application looks like, the questions. I do want to point out that our essay questions, which are 4 of them, we asked that they keep to about 250 word limit. For reference, just the background section of this discussion is 212 words. So it's roughly half a page. It's not too terribly onerous. So that's that part for their essay questions. And by we, I mean Caroline has then created a scoring matrix. So for the essay questions, the financial plan, so it gives a bit more structure of how to evaluate their responses, the financial need. And Council President Rios Campos asked this earlier. He couldn't be here this evening. It was like, well, what's the scoring for? It would do essentially two things. One, it's another kind of checkbox to make sure that it is a qualified applicant. And it does help rank if we're going to award more than the minimum, that there's some criterion in why those choices and selections were made. We did add a piece where usually scholarships are based on academic performance. And when this was set up, we understood there are shining stars and bright lights that may not perform academically well for a lot of reasons. And there ought to be mechanisms and avenues for those. And so that you can get a bonus point for a letter of recommendation, which would be a new part of this that in a different scholarship review committee I used to be part of, there was a young lady in the Corbett School District. Had some personal tragedies in life and whatnot. So academic record was not the greatest, but it was the community resource deputy for Corbett advocated for her and said, if she gets a boost, she will go far in life. And that pulled a lot of weight with the review committee. And she did. I mean, she is a nurse and is doing wonderful things. So something like that we thought could be a nice add to some of these applications. The thought also is right now the interviews are kind of subject to, is there enough in the application to understand the person? Do we want to make those now mandatory? Like if you apply, there will be an interview. That's a question for you all. Councilor President Rios Campos also asked, this is one set period. What are the thoughts of maybe having a couple periodic periods? Not structured necessarily for that this year, but something to think about for a future improvement. Also, again, some people may not be able to articulate the answers well in a typed paper format. So could they, do a video or audio kind of response to the essay questions in lieu of typing? And I don't see why not. Usually people prefer to type something than to be on video, but I don't mind going the other way. But again, something for your discussion. So this is a time to, let's have a discussion of do these revisions make sense? Confirm that council review committee if we want to add some people to it or change the makeup composition of it. And then we'll advertise, promote the program as directed. So we'll pause right here for your discussion. Happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Greg, for the introduction here. Council?
If we added, in lieu of a paper application, audio or would you say visual?
Video, yeah.
Don't we have something tangible to show that they applied? Shouldn't we have something tangible?
There would still be the paper. You'd still need like the first page of the application. You'd still need to show your financial plan. The essay questions would be
Gotcha.
like an attachment, like I don't know the file extensions for movies or audio, but some sort of electronic file attachment.
I just think about what we require or what we say for one, it should be consistent with everyone, every applicant. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion, just being equitable and if someone gets it over another person because they're able to express themselves more and not knowing that that expression is verbally as opposed to on paper or vice versa. There could be a disadvantage. And I just think about being equitable in the whole process. And even with the interview process, we did interview someone last year, but, and that was just one person, but I feel like if we interview one, we interview all. I think
Yeah, I agree with.
being consistent,
We need to be certainly equitable and consistent. Sometimes rubs up against equitable if you're not
Yeah.
careful. But number one, I think needs to be a major piece of who we award scholarships to. Number two, I believe in artifacts. And I believe that it's equitable for one person to write out an essay and another person to come with examples of what they've done or awards they've achieved because they can't write. blame it on the English teacher, but they can't write. So I would like to make sure that as we talk this through, that there are options for kids that have been getting, they didn't go to the English class because they didn't like the teacher and the teacher didn't like them. And they have never learned to really write. So I'm always, I don't like barriers to allow kids to continue to make progress. So I want us to think carefully about how it's equitable. And artifacts, documents, awards, those are all various examples. I think recommendations are important at times, but there are some of these kids that are struggling because they don't go to school, because school doesn't fit for them. They're not connected to a counselor. They're maybe connected to a teacher or maybe an educational assistant, maybe a coach. So sometimes recommendations, I think they're important for students to learn to do that. But an option to a recommendation is that there's a form. And now there's another reason for that, but a form a student could take to a person and say, would you
Can you
please
fill
fill
this
this
out?
out for me? And we create the questions on there. That also, and I want to address this starting date, Greg, because I've talked to you. May is too late because it's at the end of a school year. And I'll guarantee you, in the month of May, teachers aren't thinking about writing recommendations. And if a kid asks them 3 weeks later, they may have it. Counselors are all tied up with closing out the school year, building schedules for the next year. Just isn't enough time. I think we need to be ready to go with this on the April 1st. And and especially, we haven't talked about the interviews yet, but especially if we're going to do some interviews.
A thought that just occurred to me, because this it's April now, so we're well behind.
Well, I mean, next year, we're talking,
Well, and that's also next year, because this is budgeted in your upcoming fiscal year
Yeah.
budget. So we had awarded fiscal year 24-25. We could actually, instead of pushing it now to award in July, we could hold it until maybe more January time. Or, hold it till more late winter, and award it then. Because if we award it in this July, there isn't money to do it in April. Unless we hold the check until
well,
July.
no, you don't award it in April. You just get the application out.
By then.
Yeah, I'm not talking about awarding it. Just make the applications available.
I'm just wondering though, if the application is available, we award it. We have to notify them, not in July. That'd be several months where they're waiting for a check.
I don't know what does that have to do with whether we start the application process in May or April?
Because if it's done in May, we know who's going to win it in June. They get the check the next month. If we start it in April, we award it in May, they're waiting 2 or 3 months before they get their check, and they don't know if they're getting their check right away. In the past, once we've awarded it, they get the check, the next check run.
Yeah. Well,
We don't issue it until July.
Correct.
so,
That's what he's.
but I think if they know they're getting a check, I think we have to give ourselves enough time, and kids don't get their checks right when they
they
are
care.
awarded their scholarships. They don't, and a lot of them, they go to the school.
Well, ours
And they
goes to the
don't-
school, but the
yeah.
stipend goes to the student.
Well,
But what we can probably put in the application, I get what you're saying, Mayor. What we can disclose in the application is that the deadline is April 1st, right?
sure.
And then
No, the application is available April 1st, not May.
So it's
Just make it
available.
give them more time to do the work.
And then the application's up for review, and this
Which
is
is-
a timeline. for
Awards
review.
aren't awarded until July, I guess, is we'd have to make that
Yeah.
explicitly
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. And then, that's happened already to us, hasn't it? Haven't we awarded things in July on this scholarship?
Yeah, but we let them know end of June they were getting it. So they only waited a couple weeks to get the funds.
Well, they'll still know. I mean,
The difference is delivery of fund, knowing then delivery of funds is prolonged
they're just gonna know a little bit earlier.
and wait a little bit longer.
I know, I mean, I think because I'm more concerned about the time that the students have to gather their information, and especially, again, the ones that we're trying to reach in this. We're spreading the net wide on purpose. And some of these, if we got a GED kid
But I
that,
need more
you know,
time.
got thrown out of school, he's gonna have a hard time going back on campus and trying to get some help. So that's those are the kids that I think about with this opportunity scholarship. Now, we've given it to some, some very, accomplished students. But literally, my wife spent time with one of our early applicants, helping her
Fill it out.
fill it out and helping her navigate Mount Hood Community College website. So those are some of the, and then the last thing, I'm talking a lot here, but the criteria on how the essay would be scored. Again, if you give that to a student that's coming out of a home with very little help, and you give that application with those words on there, and that student is not a very good writer, they're not going to fill out the application. They're going to say, this is beyond me. So I don't think the criteria and the rubric is wrong. And you do want to let them know what the target is when they write a paragraph for you or so, but I'm not here to sort that out or fix it right now, but those are just my concerns. I appreciate that we're taking some time here to talk this through. So I'll quit talking, and Councilor Clark.
I just had one suggestion on the second question. That would be to change the word of proud to what have you completed? Is that you kind of messed it up in my head, but anyway, what have you done for yourself, your family, or community that you are most you have completed, and why? In other words, that you've accomplished, that's the word I was looking for. You have accomplished instead of just proud. What have you accomplished? Because see, that's what scholarships are for people that have completed something and they're ready to go on to the next step.
So I'm thinking here because we're getting a lot of very good concepts of what this is and how to target, again, students, whether coming out of high school, maybe a little later in life, in most need. And it seems like, and I've been rattling around, maybe this isn't the best instrument to evaluate that based on potential barriers, based on potential support that may be needed to provide, I'll call it us, with maybe what we're looking for. And so maybe we need to actually look at this a little differently and target it differently if we really want to capture, maybe they stumbled early in high school and then now they've raised up, or maybe they just stumbled, really want to accomplish something great.
I'm just thinking of along the lines of myself, okay, of when I built an engine and I restored an engine, right? And then I went on to doing all kinds of things that had to deal with an engine, right? And taught engine repair in college. And so it could be a small thing.
You want to see something, Counselor, if I can, about what have you accomplished?
Yeah.
So within the application
Yeah.
so they can express that.
Yeah.
It's someplace in the application. I think that makes sense. And it could be something that I accomplished getting back in my house.
Or I finished school.
I finished school. I accomplished getting off drugs. So I think accomplishment is a good thing to, we can fit.
I understand being proud is something good,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
accomplishing something,
It's a little different.
it's a little different. Yeah. That's my only thought as I read all of this. I was like, well, and goals are something that are, I have a goal to get from here to there, but accomplishing it is a completely different animal. You see what I'm getting at?
Well, yeah, but I would just say, and I don't know if we're saying the same thing or not, but if you can accomplish getting off drugs,
Yeah,
that's a pretty good accomplishment.
yeah.
I mean, so
We can play on words all day.
Yeah.
And pick at this. And it's all in perspective, because I see, what if no one feels like they've accomplished anything and are proud that they are where they are in their moment in life? I mean, by overcoming obstacles, but they don't see that as an accomplishment. They're not gonna list that as an accomplishment. So I can see
No.
that other side of that. They're proud of where they stand at this moment because they've done all these things, but they don't see it as an accomplishment. So that's where it's perspective.
I
We
think
can play on words all day, but it's just perspective.
this discussion's been
Yeah.
really good, and I think it'll give us some good fodder to probably just retool this again and bring something else back that I think is trying to grasp at. Again, I think you're all saying the same thing within a large sphere. Let us try to articulate that down into something that a student of various skills and abilities, capacities and resources could put something together that provides something meaningful for an award.
And I think the questions we've had and asked are pretty good questions.
Oh, yeah.
The problem was we weren't getting some answers.
Mhm.
So it's not as, we don't have to retool this whole thing. I want to just add one thing. I really think that sometimes the great equalizer when you sit down with a kid and they talk to you and they tell you about their answers. I think interviews are a fair piece of this because it does equalize it for kids. The application isn't articulated as well, but you meet the kid.
Well, and that's maybe,
But it
again,
takes time, we got to set it up.
your
Commitment.
experience in the schools, and, knowing challenges of students, it might be a more of a simplistic application that then requires an interview. We then send them, questions like this that will be asked as part of the interview. So then it's taking away, can they write well? Can they articulate in a video or an audio? It takes that kind of out of the equation because we're getting some basic information that, yes, they check these boxes if they're a Wood Village community member. They've got a post-secondary education plan. They've got demonstrated financial need. We're going to go to an interview. We're going to then try to make a connection with them about subjects related to this. And maybe that's the retooling that we do. So the application itself is a less of a hurdle and then just becomes the social fear of interviewing. Thank you.
How's that ringing with counselor?
Yeah, you could even just add the word and you could leave proud in there and add.
Well, again, if it's part of the interview.
Oh, I see.
Like engaging more.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
say, what are you
moving
accomplished? What are you proud of? Tell us about you.
Yeah.
And you can have kind of the discussion, but we frame it like, here are the general questions will be asked. So they
They come
Ahead of-
they have those and then they come and
But then in the discussion, you can help tease something out of them if need
Yeah.
be.
But I do like having a reference letter from a mentor, teacher,
Or again,
counselor,
that's
whatever.
a form.
or for.
Yeah, that they fill out. Yeah.
And it could be a clergy, it could be a neighbor, it could be.
Yeah.
A mentor of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important because sometimes they're better at articulating or seeing, like in, or prior applicants, seeing something that they don't see in themselves.
And so
How you doing? Are you getting?
Well, I'm good. I think we've got good direction and I think
Okay.
there's enough to put this together for this year with an understanding. We want it even earlier next year with an understanding. We'll just be very explicit of when funds are awarded.
Yeah.
I think we can put the package together for this.
Okay.
Who do you want on the council review committee? 'Cause I thought it was you and Councilor, President Rios Campos and Councilor Tan. but
Dan, well, you know,
I can't remember.
I certainly want the council to be able to participate in this, not just me. So we've had a staff member.
Mhm.
And I would say two counselors. You get three, and then the schedules start getting more hard.
Well, if three becomes a quorum then, so it's a
Yeah.
public meeting at
Yeah.
that point.
So it's and I would argue that I want Jeff to talk to us about quorums. If you're not talking about city business, you can ride in a car someplace. But anyway, but I think, you know, three people on a committee like this might be easiest to go.
Put together.
So, count, volunteers to be on we have, it was, Council, President Rio Campos and myself. Councilor Tan, you were on.
Last year.
Part of it, yeah.
Would you like to do it again?
I mean, I don't mind doing it if you're okay.
I'm fine
Yep.
with you being on it.
And then we'll see it. And each year there's, you know, I mean, again, scholarships last a certain amount of time and then they get revamped. As long as you can.
We'll retool this one a little bit, try to remove some barriers, make it equitable and see where it takes us.
Okay, we're going into a exec session.
I have two quick things before we do that, though. The first one in front of you is from the Columbia Slough Water Council. They are holding an event June 20th. It's targeted at Hispanic Latinx communities, but it's open to all community members.
It's July.
Sorry, July 20th.
Okay.
I didn't have it in front of me. That was close. I had first two letters right.
Yeah.
Sure.
They've asked if we'd want to be a sponsor of that. That starts at $500. There is room in your council discretionary funds. You have $5,000 in that. You spent $500. That was to sponsor a Dia de los Muertos event. So if you want to help support this, it could be at the $500 level out of your council discretionary funds.
Thumbs up,
I'm okay with that.
thumbs up.
Great. We
Good.
will contact them, make it happen. The last one real quick.
Sounds like a good,
It sounds really fun. It sounds like a fun event. And it's down by
Done this
the,
before where I canoed it.
yeah.
So, yeah.
cool.
Are we is that what they're going to be doing this time too?
And adding, yeah, so there's canoeing, there's different activities, face painting.
Free screening, free food, drinks.
Yeah, making a whole big shebang. So again, we'll get it to the natural leaders and Play East, help promote it too. Last thing, Counselor Amond has indicated she's going to miss the second May meeting out of town without internet. We just want to make sure we'll have a quorum. That's the council's budget adoption hearing. We just want to make sure that there'll be a quorum available.
What date
I'm
is that
leaving.
again?
That'd be May 28th.
Yeah,
Oh, hold on, let me check.
I'm leaving next Tuesday and I'll be gone for a week.
Well,
Going
that's
to
fine.
Hawaii.
This is the second May meeting.
I will not be here. I will be out of town.
Oh, our financial expert on the council. Good God. Okay. Well, that gives us four.
No, it doesn't,
Does it?
because Council President Rios Campos can't vote on part of the budget.
Oh,
No, I'll be here. for That
so
one.
one, yeah.
So
So
we
council,
can, so that's scheduled for the May 26th meeting,
Yeah.
correct? The adoption. We could do that the first June meeting. It would just, if anything goes wrong,
Yeah.
we have less time to fix anything, which is fine because things generally don't go wrong, but we can't push that. I mean, I think Portland pushes theirs up until June 30th, so it's possible to do.
June, if we, to get a quorum, because Hyro can't.
Councilor Amon should be back. So
Yeah.
that should, and that's why we asked tonight to make sure,
Good.
so we know when to publish.
Well, I
Yes.
better check my calendar, but I've been gone a lot.
But you said it was, when's our next council meeting?
It was not the next council meeting, it's the second council meeting in May. That's when we have for the budget adoption.
I'll be here.
So our budget hearings on the 25th of this month,
April.
but when it goes back to council for adoption, it's the second one in May.
Isn't the second one the 21st?
Let me pull up a
The
calendar.
second one is on the
Yeah.
28th, isn't it?
21st, sorry.
Oh, 21st, I'll be here.
My screen would stop.
That's
No,
why.
it's actually the 28th. It
It's
is the
28th
28th.
is the,
Yeah. because of how the month falls. So this first meeting is actually not till the 14th. And so then the fourth Tuesday is the 28th.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
you are.
I did have it right.
28th of May.
I wanted you to question yourself. a little.
So you are gone.
I am
Correct.
gone.
So let's
We'll
look at
put
that.
it to June,
Hopefully.
first meeting in June.
Okay,
And there was no wrong answer to this. We just wanted to make sure so when we publish the dates, we know what dates will work.
okay, so June 11th is when we're gonna
Consider adopting the budget.
consider adopting the budget. Okay, great.
No, my kids.
Let's see.
Now we'll go to executive session. We'll give a minute.
Yes, I'm gonna adjourn our regular session and go into an executive session.
We would talk about, city. For Friday was. Oh, that's right. Yes.